Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the OK Grognard Show. It is Wednesday, July 8th, 2020, 9:30 a.m. Central in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Of course, Wednesday is campaign discussion day. We often focus on my own campaign world of Grimwald, which I started back in 1974. With the advent of D&D. Little dungeon, little village nearby. Lots of fun there. But today, much like last week when we were talking about running NPCs, this is campaign discussion, and utilizing the PROSE system, which I came up with along the way as DMing, a shorthand for helping me keep track of what sorts of attitudes and personality any given NPC might have. I expanded on that, codified it a bit about 20 years ago when I started Creative Mountain Games. I included a codified version of it in The Whispering Woodwind, which was the first adventure that I put out. I think originally I was selling it I was working on it in 2000, selling it in 2001. Eventually got it up onto RPG Now, which is now Drive Through RPG. Back in 2002, I think I first got it up on there. Anyway, I had revised it a couple times during the early times because, we were all new to third-party publishing back then, all of us who started with the advent of the open game license. And, there were things that we were all doing to improve early on. Most of us were new to desktop publishing then, too. So making something from scratch as a gamer and a fan of D&D and a fan of role-playing games and a fan of the gaming industry in general, I think we all jumped in with both feet. Someone could have shaved today, huh? Anyway, we started off doing things like that. And this adventure, Whispering Woodwind, was my first full published effort. I'd done a couple page dealios around that time as well. But this was a 32-page adventure. It, in keeping with the third edition sort of design mentality, it had 14 encounter areas, and it was meant to be run for a low-level group, not a first-level group. This is a little tougher than that. But if you had a mix of second and third level characters, and you had 4, 5, even 6 of them, this would be a good challenging adventure for them in a third edition system type deal. So, you could run it straight out of the box today. It got upgraded in 2008. With the 3.5 coming on the scene. Some changes. There weren't a lot of changes that would have affected this. But we made those changes anyway. And revamped it for 3.5 at that point. It was a good idea anyway, because certainly with all the things that were coming out at that point, there were so many third-party publishers, and with all of the things becoming available that were specifically made for 3.5, it was important to distinguish 3.0 from 3.5 to the marketplace, and making a few little adjustments needed to be made to bring that from 3.0 to 3.5 were worthwhile. Ask me what they were specifically, I couldn't tell you. We're talking a dozen years ago at this point, and I haven't run 3rd edition as a system, or even Pathfinder, in probably a decade. So, maybe not that long for Pathfinder. I took over a guy's campaign who had to drop away because of a scheduling conflict, and he was DMing for a handful of people. And they wanted a campaign to be ongoing and then finished up. And it was kind of a high-level thing. And we did a bunch of dragon stuff. And it was a lot of fun. But in any event, the PROSE system was introduced in that early adventure, so it's codified almost 20 years ago. This December will be the 20th anniversary of when I kicked off Creative Mountain Games. And so this is about a 2-decade-old system. Older, really, but codified a couple of decades ago. And let's think of it in terms of what it is. Let's bring it all the way over here. Okay. There we go. So, in the Whispering Woodwind adventure, running NPCs, this whole section's about the PROSE system. We went over this last week. Essentially, it gives you numbers from 1 to 10 for politics, religion, others, self, and economics. Hence PROSE, the acronym. And they're sliding scales. They're not meant to be. They're not meant to be a conglomerate. Is that the right word? You couldn't add them up and say, here's 60 points, split it up amongst them, or 60 would be too many. You'd have more. You'd have over 10 for some of them. But you couldn't give somebody 25 points and say, split it up amongst these, and there's your average human, right? If you're high in one, you got to be low in others. No, you could be high in all, you could be low in all. These are your basic attitudes in these 5 separate categories. We talked about how they work out, and I won't go back into that because that'll take quite a while, and I want to move on with some other part, because the keywords part is the part I want to focus on today. Keywords are useful as quick guides to jumping into character. There's an old theater saying that once you have the hat and shoes for a character, the rest falls into place. It's also true with keywords. Interaction based on a few easy-to-utilize tags gets the ball rolling and allows the DM to run with a character rather than trying to invent something completely new and interesting on the fly. So, originally I had suggested that these could be any old word, but I have found over the years that adjectives work the best for obvious reasons. If you say, whether it's a physical adjective or a what's the word I'm looking for? Boy, I'm quite the wordsmith today, aren't I? Metaphorical, I guess. Either way, they'll work great. So you could say that finds it says, hey, well, PROSE system, no music. Yeah, well, let's go to an example. So here was the first NPC popping up in. He's an expert. There were NPC classes in 3.0, one of them being expert. I think adept, noble, acolyte, maybe. They were meant to be lesser classes. So an expert was somebody who was good at particular skills, a bit of a skills monkey. In any event, Tardak here also had a little box off to the side for the PROSE system. Politics, religion, not so much. Others, cares a bit, very self-centered. Economics makes sense too, because Tardak was the owner of a tavern and inn. Well, we're not saying that you're automatically going to be great at economics if that's the case, but it makes sense the other way around, in that if somebody is good in economics, they will likely gravitate toward a place where that interest can be exploited, go into business, right? So 3 adjectives: commanding, disarming, perceptive. So when I see this character and I know that he thinks of himself more highly than others a bit, is long on economics, and then there's also commanding, so give him some bearing and confidence and assuredness. Also disarming, so he can do this without, he can put on a friendly face. He can take you into his confidence. He can reassure you. He can make you feel good about yourself, right? He can get you to let your guard down, right? Perceptive. Okay. Now, one of the other things about this prose system is finding a way to make the 3 adjectives or the 3 key words work in conjunction with one another. So let's look at that right away. Perceptive, okay, he picks up on people's likes and dislikes. This helps him to be disarming. It also helps bolster that commanding personality of his, right? Because if he knows what drives you and can get you to let your guard down, he can move you in a particular mindset or a particular direction. Now, in this case, wouldn't be politically, right? He doesn't really have a big stake in politics or in religion. Those are kind of low. But self-interest, right? So here's a guy who runs a tavern, who can make good money, who doesn't have a lot of people taking advantage of him while they're there. He's commanding, so he can make sure things are run well. He's got, if he has staff working for him, they're probably held in line pretty well. He knows how to combine the stick and the carrot, right, with the command and the disarming. He's perceptive, so he knows what draws people in, what drives them, what motivates them, and he knows how to get them to do good work for him, right? So too, he knows how to sell. He knows how to convince customers to make purchases and to, that kind of feeds itself too. Now, if we look down here at this, we do these stat blocks. Oop, that's the fine thing. We don't want that. We do want, well, I guess we just got to do this. Let's bring that up here. Whoops, one less. So here was a stat block from 3rd edition, right? Gender, race, class, name first, right? That doesn't get used anymore. Challenge rating. Well, maybe it does. It does, really. But it's used differently now. Medium size, humanoid, human, okay. Hit dice, hit points, initiative, bonus, speed, broken down into squares. Armor class, doesn't wear armor. Base attack, grapple, okay, he's got those bonuses when attacking. He uses a club. D6-4. Full attack is the same. Space, reach, not really. Alignment, lawful, neutral. Don't forget now, one of the important aspects of the prose system is that it's meant to enhance. It's not meant to replace using alignment. So keep that in mind. If you use alignment, don't think it has to counter it. Though, as we said last week, people are not straitjacketed by alignment. This is this character's alignment based on what's been done before. Granted, this is an NPC, but this gives us a starting point. So, if something happens in this adventure and the dice dictate that this, based on some potential actions, takes an action that kind of goes against that whole idea of being lawful neutral, well, as a DM, I think, okay, maybe he's moving away from lawful neutral. Maybe he's doing something a little bit chaotic. He's not going to become chaotic neutral in a moment. But if the dice keep dictating that he does things that are not lawful, then eventually he's going to shift toward true neutral. And then, by this alignment system, we'll shift further toward chaotic neutral. But he runs a tavern. He's in town. It kind of behooves him to color within the lines and to be lawful as a business owner. So there you go. Maybe that just that day-to-day offsets any occasional veer away from law. Saving throws, fortitude, reflex, and will. Highest on will. We got our stats then, ability scores, and of course in 3rd edition they stacked up a little differently. We didn't do like we do in 1st edition. Greetings, Ink Dweller 8. Good to see you, buddy. Thanks for popping in. We're talking about a stat block in Whispering Woodwind. Strength 12, Dex 10, Con 12. Nothing super outstanding there. A little high average side, right? Because 9 to 11, 9 to 12 is the average range. Intelligence 14. Okay. He's no slouch. Wisdom, high average. Charisma 16. So there's your outstanding stat there. And we can see how that feeds into and can work with the prose stat block that we have above. Right? Commanding, disarming, perceptive. All of those work well with that 16 charisma. Appraise, so he's a bit of a skill monkey, being that NPC expert class. Appraise, bluff, diplomacy, forgery, ring. And I got to tell you something. I thought that the NPC classes were a really nice innovation. I thought that they were really useful if you were going to stat up NPCs, and let's face it, that's not something you need to do too much of in most RPG situations. But if you're writing up an adventure for someone else to run, and you don't know what their players are going to do or how it's going to be run, it may be run in such a way that Tardak becomes a combatant by virtue of what the PCs do, players do, right out of the gate. And boy, wouldn't it be nice to have this little stat block handy for yourself in that case, to be able to run it without having to think about it? Maybe you don't need it. Maybe this takes up real estate that could have been used on some more descriptive text. I don't know. I like having the stat blocks. Maybe I'm not alone. Plus, we've got plenty of description of this character, and that's all we need. So there we go. We took a little time to talk about what the weather was going to be like in this scenario, potentially at this time of year, in the climate they have, in the region they happen to be in, and what the climate would be like. So that discusses that. A lot of box text here. Personally, I always thought, give people box text. They don't have to read it, but they can. It does two things. One, it gives the It gives the DM a sense of what the character is like, how he speaks. Because it's narrative, you get to look into his head a little bit as he's dealing with NPCs. Facial expressions, attitudes, the way he goes into certain lines of questioning or descriptive description, what the character, the NPC, deems as important based on the sum total of what is in that box text. Because, you could write 12 pages, or you could write one paragraph. If you chose one paragraph out of the 12 pages to represent that NPC, well, that's going to be the stuff that's important, right? So, going in that direction, you can use this box text, but you don't have to. You can think of it as behind the scenes, throw out some key points and whatnot, and you don't need to get any deeper than that if you don't want to. And that's all good. Plenty there. Negotiating a deal. So these are the important points for what Tardek sees as important. The following represent what stakes are in the eyes, what the stakes are in the eyes of Tardek. So he's had something stolen. He has money owed to him. He's had a number of things stolen, actually. And damages to his business and so on. So these are his considerations when thinking about hiring the adventuring party to go after this bard, Cantel. And this becomes the adventure, right? This is, there's a whole idea, there's a whole section here on the negotiation process. What are deal breakers? What are, how far he'll go? What sort of caveats, do this, but don't do that. Oh, you want to also do this? Well, that's okay, but then also do this. So, varying ways of negotiating. So it's more than just throwing out plot hooks, right? And this is a good campaign tip. A few sentences that are, here are your potential plot hooks, as some people like to call them. I don't know if I'm big on that, because it assumes a certain story is put into motion where I'd rather see that play out during gameplay or come into to manifest during gameplay. Plot hooks kind of narrow the focus of what the PCs are doing based on what the DM is trying to run. This negotiation for here's a situation, here's a potential job, how do you want to approach it, what are you in for, what's your interest in doing this in the first place. This allows the players, through their characters, to determine their own involvement and then to determine the level of it. So you're not just giving someone agency or not agency, you're giving them a kind of sliding scale of agency, which is good in a way because we're assuming there's player character, player agency. We're assuming that they have that to begin with. How much they're going to have depends on their level of buying in. So it's their commitment that determines this. It's completely out of the hands of the dungeon master at that point. The referee doesn't determine how much you want to play or don't want to play on any given day. That's up to the players. And once you've overcome that hurdle, once you've gotten the players to say, yeah, I'm in, but I'm only this much in, and you have others say, oh yeah, I'm in completely. I'm going after this particular goal, and try and stop me. So you can have different levels in the same group, players buying in at different levels, but still, because they've all discussed it and determined through their characters what their characters' goals are, then you don't have to worry about somewhere down the line there being such strident cross purposes that it breaks up a group of players or throws too much conflict, inter-party conflict into the mix that can be the downfall of a campaign. Because let's face it, a lot of players, and rightfully so, I think, if they feel their characters can't get along with other players' characters, they start to question, why would my character travel with this guy? Personally, I've never felt that it was a good enough excuse to say, well, he's another player at the table, so you just gotta have to, and it doesn't matter how poorly you're treated, your character is treated by this other character. That other character is run by another player who's in this group. And because of that, you've got to let this abuse or whatever go on. That doesn't fly with me. If somebody's being disruptive, I will move them out of a group, because you've got to, as a DM, make sure, I don't want to say, let's not go so far as to say you've got to coddle all your players, but let's go so far as, and I'm not, safe space isn't quite the right word, because that has particular meanings in this day and age, but and I don't want to say that you got to protect all your players, because things should come up. These are, generally speaking, adults that I play with. If you're playing with youngsters, there's a whole nother ball of wax there that you have to deal with, and it's important that you do it correctly, but we won't get into that right now. Just to say that you can't let one player's fun come at the expense of someone else's fun, as a regular matter of course. It's going to happen every now and then. There are going to be spikes where one person's having more fun and one person's having less fun, and there can be a correlation there. But you can't let that be an ongoing situation, or you're going to lose some players. And you don't want to do it because of inaction on your part as a referee. So, that said, let's take one more look at another Farmer Lyle. Farmer Lyle, boy, he doesn't care about politics at all. Fairly religious. Others, 5. Self, 6, a little more towards self. Economics, 7. So most of these are kind of on the high end, or a little above the average of 5, 6, right? And those 3 key words: gruff, keen, short-tempered. Okay, bit of a hothead, bit grumbly about it in the first place. Keen, though, sharp. So this is the place you can buy ponies, dogs, horses. This is a farm on the outskirts, so if you're chasing somebody who stole a horse, maybe you want to get some horses if your characters don't already have them. Got the tables broken down here. I put in their loads and everything, what they can carry, what they can drag. This is all 3.5 stuff, but honestly, this sort of stuff converts nicely, because this was based on real-world physics and biology as much as anything else. So it plays in-game. How much can a light horse carry? If a light horse is tied up to a tree trunk, a stump, how much can it pull against there? What is the horsepower? It's 1 horsepower. It's always 1 horsepower when it's 1 horse. Not really quite the same thing, but there you go. Tracking dogs, riding dogs, ponies, light horses. Farmer Lyle doesn't have heavy war horses on his farm. Does have guard dogs, so that's good. Got the full stats. Expert 4. Farmer Lyle's no slouch. The other thing I liked about NPC stat blocks, Lost Nomad, morning. The other thing I liked about these was being able to give some hit points to NPCs. They weren't just a bunch of zero-level humans that, if you need them in the groin, they died. So it's good to have something like this. This might be something that on some level could be incorporated into earlier editions of the game without making it overly complex. I'll have to keep that in the back of my mind. Anyway, I think we've gone into this enough. We talked a lot about the idea of using the adjectives. I'm working on something myself right now in the form of, let's see, where did I have that? Yeah, I think it's this over here. We'll switch screens. Here's a site I wanted to share with some people. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with this. There's a site called Rye Mazzone. RyeMazzone.com. It has this fantastic tool for getting rhymes, for getting all sorts of things. Rhymes, advanced rhymes, near rhymes, synonyms, descriptive words, find phrases, example sentences, antonyms, definitions, lyrics and poems, appears in definition of, find related words. I mean, look at this. Homophones, phrase rhymes, similar sounding words, spelling, check the spelling of words, match consonants only. So if you're doing a Beowulf type poem and you're looking for that consonants, right? That style of poetry that works on the consonants and the beats of the consonants rather than on rhyming or match these letters. Search in Shakespeare, search for quotations. So the Rhyme Zone, and this used to only have maybe half this many things. So they've been adding and building on this website for a long time. I use it mainly for rhymes, but it's also great as a sort of a quick dictionary for you. So if you're looking up adjectives, you can limit it to that, so you only get the adjective definition. If there is a noun definition, you can get that. And then you can, several examples to use something in a sentence, right? Adjective, destructive, didactic. There it is right there. So, for this upcoming thing that I'm working on, hey there, LexFire22, how you doing? Good morning. I am working on putting out the PROSE system in a sort of a digest-sized. So mainly we'll take that description that we have there in the Whispering Woodwind, and then we will just have page upon page upon page of keyword adjectives tables. So I have downloaded 4,500 potential adjectives. Now, some of these adjectives simply don't work for describing a person. Some of them can work metaphorically, but you wouldn't want to push that too far because you've got other words that can mean the same thing. Diffuse, actually. So let's take that, find definition, put that in here. As an adjective, lacking conciseness. A diffuse historical novel. Okay, lacking conciseness. That can work for a person. Spread out, not concentrated in one place. A large, diffuse organization. I'm going to take that one out. That's a little too much of a stretch, I think, for a list. If we got this list down to about 3,000, so that I had 30 tables of 100 words each, such that I could put this in a digest-sized book with a couple of pages up front describing the system, the PROSE system, and what the acronym stands for, and then have another 2 pages of that, and then another 30 pages with 100 percentage dice tables afterwards to get to 3,000 words. That'd be a good little digest-sized booklet that you could use when creating NPCs on the fly. We know how the PROSE system works, so we'd have to determine the 5 different numbers. We can just roll them, make it totally random, and then roll a 30-sider. Which table are we on? Percentage dice. Which one of the 100 on that table? Write down that keyword. Do that 3 times. And we've got ourselves a neat little way of quickly determining the attitudes and foibles of an NPC in a given moment, or while we're creating an adventure and prepping as a DM. So I don't know. Guys in the chat, what do you think of that idea? Is that something that would be useful as a little digest-sized booklet? Just something based totally on the PROSE system, put together for quick use at the table or while prepping? I think so. Anyway, we're well beyond the 30-minute mark. I know we spent a little more time going back over some of that PROSE system then, but I wanted to take some examples from the adventure and discuss them. So we will put those down. We will say to everybody, catch up with us later in the week. Tomorrow, terrain crafting and miniature painting. We'll get on to building adventures in a virtual tabletop way. I'm going to run that Tower of Terror again for the Founders and Legends weekend, which is coming up. Look that up, if you would please. It is the weekend of 17th, 18th, and 19th. I think I'm running it 11:30 a.m. Saturday, Central Time. If you go over to Tabletop Events, you can sign on to DM or to play. There'll be those cool streams with Luke Gygax and other celebrities playing D&D. I think probably Stefan is running again. I'm not 100% sure. But the Dwarven Forge Dungeon Master himself. And if he's running it, you know it'll be a lot of fun. There'll be such great visuals, obviously. So check that out. That's coming up not this weekend, but the following weekend. Sign yourself up if you want to get in a game with me. Like I say, Tabletop Events. I've already got one on the books. I'm kind of waiting until some of the scheduling shakes out so that I can slot my other games into places where there aren't things that I want to play in. Also, if you are familiar with yucata.de, yucata.de. It's a German website that has a lot of board games on it. That's pretty cool. You can sign up over there and play some games. I'll probably be running a couple of games that are Yucata games. Tabletopia.com, another place you should sign up, create an account. If you maybe want to play some board games on a virtual tabletop, because that's a good site for that too. And I may run a couple of games on there. And those will be ways I fill in my schedule for Founders and Legends. And, what could be more fun than kicking back on a weekend and playing a board game with some friends from all over the world? So there you go. Good times. There's the rest of the schedule. I want to thank everybody for following the Twitch channel and for chiming in when you have on the stream chat here on Twitch. Let's see. Well, Xfire Nomad. Okay, I've got all of you guys already on the list for week 15 for the giveaway for next week. So thank you all. Also, if you're catching up with this on YouTube, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up over there if you would, please. I would appreciate that. And leave a comment. Always happy to get feedback. So if there's something you want to see more of that we do on the show, then definitely let us know about that. If there's something we're doing that you think we're doing wrong, well, tough crap. No, wait. I was going to say, please let us know, because feedback's always useful. Doesn't mean we're going to change anything. Heck, I've been around too long to change too much, right? Nevertheless, if it's a good idea, I don't care where a good idea comes from. I will steal that good idea and I will pretend that I came up with it myself. Now, I'll give you credit. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You take care, and we will catch you later in the week. Have a good day.